Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Rodeo Time, the podcast. We are at the grounds of Huntsville. I'm down here with two traveling partners of mine, Jeremy Ray Melanson, Ross Sherrod.
Hey.
Ross Sherrod, not Sherrod. So both you guys had hard names to pronounce. Melanson, Melankin, Sherrod, Sherrod. But they got it done. I mean, just so long as they spell it right on the check, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
We're at the grounds of Huntsville. It is, if you're planning on going to Sam Houston or if you just live in the area and you need somewhere to live, the grounds is the place to be. I think they were roping last night. There was like 30 people out here, team roping, cutting up. Again tonight. Do they rope every night?
Man, some of them do.
Some of them do. Yeah. So there's one bedroom, one bath with horse stalls behind them. There's duplexes with horse stalls behind them. There's just a barn if you just need a place for a horse. There's a 12-plex if you don't need a run. So you built this from the ground up. What year did you start it?
2015. You got to do something if you don't win enough money rodeoing. But we were going to build one duplex that year, and the banker went and talked to said, well, why don't you just start with two duplexes? I was like, why don't we start with two duplexes? That's
a good idea.
You know? So, yeah, we started there, and 42 units later, 78 horse stalls, pastures everywhere, 2 arenas. It's been a pretty cool project.
And so you guys, and you've got turnkey metal buildings. That's who helped build it.
Yeah, back then we were turnkey metal buildings. We were just building metal buildings. That's evolved into turnkey custom homes, turnkey home consulting. So we do kind of all parts of it.
And then you kind of stepped away from management, but now you're back into managing it.
Yeah, we're gonna play a hand in managing it, just directly under the owner to come up with a kind of a partnership model of managing the property as an on-site team that works directly through the owner instead of third-party management companies.
Gotcha.
Keep somebody on site, just kind of help build back a community vibe, and have somebody here works out pretty well.
So check that out. If you're in Huntsville, that's where we're going to be filming these next couple of podcasts. We've got Mr. Ross is going to offer some really great insight on some of the similarities between going to war and getting on a bucking horse. Believe it or not, there are some similarities there. So one, the stakes are a lot higher than the other. And newsflash, it's not the bucking horses. So we're going to hear some war stories, literally and figuratively. And now on to the podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Rodeo Time Podcast. Got in the house Mr. Jeremy Melanson, Ross Sherrod, and Dale Brisby.
Yeah.
Did we all three ever go to a rodeo together?
Surely.
We had to have. Like in the same vehicle or just at... Well, I know we were there all at the same time.
All often.
Yeah, often. I know that I've been in the vehicle with you and Carly and also in the vehicle with you, obviously. But I don't know if we have...
We may not have
just the
traveled to the rodeo, just the three of us together.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I've traveled with you. And then you guys have definitely probably traveled together to something.
Yeah. I had a hard time remembering the things that I was supposed to remember to be a good bronc rider, much less the smaller details. Like forget a horse that you got on last week kind of deal. So
yeah. I saw this weekend we went to Henrietta. Donnie got on in Henrietta, and I saw Josh Bubba Hudson.
Oh yeah.
I called him Bubba. I said, "Who calls you Bubba anymore?" And he said, "Not very many people." It's about the 9 of us that were hanging around back in college rodeo days. And then up walked Marvin Alderman.
Yeah.
So he's still selling cars. He said, like candy bars. He did grit out a dirty, rotten bareback horse. And maybe just because he's so little, you little guys riding bareback horses make him look rank. He bucked down about 7.
Yeah.
But man, it just made me grimace.
What? Who had it?
Bob. I mean, it was a good horse. It was a rank horse. Like,
Yeah.
He was going to win the rodeo, but it was, oh man, it wasn't a horse thing. It was just an event thing. Like bareback riding in general is what made my back hurt thinking about it.
Yeah. Still gets me up in the morning.
Yeah. I got just up out of nowhere, 2 of my interns, Carson and Kevin, were like, apparently been sneaking around getting on spur boards. Kevin's been wanting to ride bareback. Carson's been wanting to ride broncs. So now I'm doing that. Kevin Wayne Reed's wanting to ride bareback horses.
Ooh.
So I'm about to have a bareback riding intern.
Does he have the switch? Because, I mean, he's a pretty relaxed guy.
100, yeah.
Normally. Like,
yeah. The most relaxed.
Yeah, very relaxed. So, much like myself, you got to have that switch to turn it on.
That's what I've been trying to
You can be relaxed as relaxed can be, and then turn that switch on. You know what, like in here over the recent past, like watching guys on the Cowboy Channel, like especially in the bareback riding, but I think the guy that I've seen that is the most calm that I have ever seen anybody ever be in the chute, in the middle of the ride, anything, is probably Cole Reiner. Like, you can look at that guy in the face and he just looks like he's sitting on the couch at the house. Like, and then he spurs the dog out of one.
So after working with a few guys, like getting started as we went on, it is something that they're like real tensed up when they start, right? So you tell them, hey, relax a little bit. But I remember back when I started, the guy was helping me was like, hey, now just get in there and be relaxed. I was like, okay, and I would just be like super relaxed and then nod my head, and then just like dirt would slap me in the side of the face. I'm like, well, we'll try again. I'll relax a little more this time. It took me forever to realize, like, you're going to have to try really hard to do this successfully at all.
Where was he coming from? Like, did he
just
have
not be so
that,
tensed up and jerk on the horse's head? Like, don't pick your rein up hard. Don't like.
Had you done that?
Like, no, I'd never been on a Bronc. Like he's putting me on my first few Broncs. Maybe like just working with people getting started, they were real tensed up and scared or rough or, whatever. And
so
I was
you're
like,
just like you're about to play a video game.
Just going to be relaxed and nod my head. And then that horse would leave with everything it had. And I would just slap the ground like, try again. And I'm sure he was like, man, this guy has no try at all. I was like, I'm relaxed, man.
You told me to relax. No, I told whenever I was trying to get on bareback horses, Pop pointed out Wes Stevenson, and we were watching the NFR one night, and the camera was like, up in their grill, and Wes was riding, and he was like, right there. He was talking about that switch, and he was like, right there, his own mother wouldn't recognize who he is. And obviously she can see him, but the point is like who he turns into right then to go to the place. And he was like, that's what you got to do. And I could do it occasionally on the right kind of horse. Like, I mean, you remember like Longview.
Yeah.
I got on Shady Lady of Sammy Andrews, which maybe even you remember that bareback horse, but just the most hopper. He's Sammy's hopper in the bareback riding.
Super hopper. Yeah.
Made me feel like a bareback rider.
Yeah.
And it was raining. Tilden, all them guys were there. It was fun.
Longview, of course, it was raining.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it was fun. And I tried to go back the next year. I was like, I got to enter Longview, same night, everything. Right next to my name, Cool Water. I called Jake Brown. I said, what is Cool Water? And he just started laughing. And
did he say don't go get on him, or did he just?
No, I mean, at the time I wasn't going to do that. That wasn't an option for me mentally.
Yeah.
Looking back, I absolutely should have put my rigging on Craigslist, and I should have not gone and got on him. But Jacob slapped him out. He's like, man, I thought you were going to die. But the point is like I got to where I was so terrified of those horses that I couldn't turn the switch on as good, Like I just didn't want to get on bareback horses.
Man.
Check out DaleBrisby.com for the new Rodeo Time apparel, old son. We got a lot of new shirts and caps on DaleBrisby.com. It's hoodie season.
Man, when I got the call from the secretary at Los Fresnos, said, "Hey, are you coming tomorrow?" It was 12th in the short round, so there's no money, no nothing. I thought I'd get bumped
Wait,
out.
Now you're talking about Tucson.
Oh yeah, Tucson. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Tucson.
What were we were at?
There's not a short.
Yeah. No, Tucson. So we were in
Sinton. Yeah,
Sinton. South Texas. So you and Tate and me, we weren't in our rig though. We ended up driving somebody else's rig up there.
I don't know. I don't know how we got. We went up there with Bradley Harder. We caught a ride with Bradley Harder there.
Caught a ride with Bradley.
Drove Jesse Bale's minivan back.
Yeah. So don't know the horse, don't know anything. Just absolutely, you're gonna go to the short round. You know what are you gonna do
when they call? Yes.
Yeah, so
why did you even call me?
Yeah. So thanks for letting me know. I probably should have called. So we head to Tucson. And I get there and have Fancy Pants, which is been the horse of the year, bucked everybody off, all that. Oh, I don't know the horses I'm supposed to know.
Yeah.
So I call Sterling and ask him what Fancy Pants is. And he gets so excited before he's fixing to tell me that I've drawn this dragon breathing, fire breathing dragon, whatever. And the phone cuts out. His phone died. And so I have no idea. I have no idea that I'm getting on this amazing animal, right? Until, much like I did when I relaxed too much, my face hit the dirt in the chute. They're like, "Hey, we have to get you out of the way to close the gate," kind of deal. And it was a long evening after that. So
it was such a long evening.
Dale and Tate went up there with us.
Artie Meyer,
Rory
Meyer, and Leroy. What bar was that?
Well, we started at the beer tent, like at the hospitality tent. Like we were eating and they showed up because we had to wait for the bull riding to be over, or we'd have been out of there at not very
and
far.
You had to wait on them, dude. And they were wanting to party.
And we went to a bar. We went to a restaurant while they were in a bar.
A freaking what's
hibachi
the
place
cook in front of you? Yeah, hibachi. They don't.
And we
ain't in there quick.
Forever.
No, we slow roll the dinner because we finally went to sleep in the van waiting on them to come out, and they close it down.
Then we went to the bar after hibachi, and Leroy, Rory, and Artie closed down this place because they got 2 designated drivers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they probably didn't get bucked off in the gate, so they were still pumped up.
They probably
left Tucson,
money.
Arizona, came back to Texas. We left Tucson at 2 a.m.
Yep. And I was done by 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah,
right?
we was
right after the rodeo.
That's right. It was
because it was an afternoon. Yeah. It was a matinee party.
We could have been in Texas by the time
by
we
2
left Arizona.
By the time
Arizona.
We left.
Yeah, had it been just like me and you,
right,
dude.
We just drove up there to saddle and fall off Fancy Pants in the gate.
I wasn't even entered. So
and then waited on everybody to go to the bar and then drive home.
It was the only thing. It took me a year to make that where it wasn't soured up because I drew that horse in the long round the following year and won the rodeo. So it worked out. It
ended up working out. Yeah.
Thankfully, I drew a hopper from Bar T in the short round and didn't have to risk the short round as bad.
Did you win the whole rodeo?
Yeah.
Didn't you win the whole? Yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah, so that was cool, and then it was Fancy Pants. So that was like a rematch in the long round. And so I think only 3 Bronc. I think she only had 3 scores on her.
Redemption.
It could be wrong, but
total.
Yeah,
total. I think she was only ridden 3 times. Cody Wright, me, and somebody else.
Who?
Me and somebody else aren't name worthy like Cody Wright. So,
what? How many was you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably 80, 81, something like that. Yeah, maybe that might have been the short. I might have been higher than that. And it might have been the short round that I was the guy coming into the short round. I think Dawson Jandrew came in winning the long round, and he drew Fancy Pants to and she did get him in the short round. But because they told me to go get on the victory lap horse, I was like, no, if he rides this horse at all, he's sitting better, he's riding great, and the horse is good, but. It worked out.
Remember when we went to Athens and there was like supposed to be like a lot of added money, and then right at the last minute they changed it. But they still had these. They had Frontier, they had Stace, they had me and you were in the bareback, and we both had not been on very many bareback horses. And
we had just gotten our
Medicine Woman.
Oh my goodness!
And I got on
Memphis King.
Yeah.
Big black horse.
And I took the rigging handle off the side of my face.
Yep. You had blood on your face.
Yeah, knocked hide off the side of my face.
Because I was out of a left-hand delivery and you were out of a right-hand delivery. Yeah. I think you went first.
And he Supermaned me, one-armed me, and went straight down over the top. And
this Memphis King, big black horse, did stretch out. And we shouldn't have been there. But they switched it. It was like a bunch of money added, and then at the last minute, they switched it to like $1,500. But they didn't change. Like, they still had all these awesome horses going. So it was like circuit guys like us, but then there were these
stacked pin.
Yeah. Because originally we wouldn't have entered it had it been a $5,000, $6,000 added.
Man, I remember Athens one year. Me and Carly drove over there by ourselves, and they had on the sign that like Friday night was, cross Canadian ragweed or something, and then Saturday night was somebody that she didn't care for as much, I guess. And she was like, "Man, why didn't you enter it yesterday so that we could watch them? That would have been so much cooler." And like kind of got on me, joking around, but got on me for not entering it that Friday. I come back out to the car, and she's getting ready to get out. I went up there to like pay my fees and stuff, or just whatever. And I come back, and I was like, "Well, we can head to the house if you don't want to watch the rodeo." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, I actually was entered last night." So, so I listened to it all the way home. That like, you even entered the right night for the concert I wanted to watch. It just didn't come. And it's like, man, just dumb things. Like, drove all the way to Athens to know that I was like, "Oh, we turned you out last night." So then I've got non-notified turnout fines to pay. It cost me like, $300 or $400 to not go to that rodeo.
Yeah, the PRCA, they'll get you for a non-notified turnouts.
Rightly so.
Just
freaking Fort Worth. Remember me, you, TJ, we all entered Rio Rancho, and I was the only one that got in. So instead of just freaking turning out like I should have, me and Leroy drive out there, and then we all nighted it to Fort Worth. It was my first time to be in Fort Worth, and I was in the bareback riding, and you got to get on like 7 horses in the bareback riding in Fort Worth. Like, you got to get on like 4 perfs. Well, apparently I was doubled up over Rio Rancho for my first one, which I didn't know because it was like my first time to ever be, in the bareback riding, whatever, and not paying attention.
How many times are they going to put my name on this list?
And,
I think back then it was 3. You got on 3.
It was 3.
Yeah.
It wasn't 7, but it was 3. But everything else was like 2. Everybody else got on 2. So I show up to get on my second one, which I thought was my first one. And I go in there to pay my fees, and Neil Gay, they're talking about me. I realize they are. They don't realize it's me, but he was just like, "I don't understand why they can't just call." Like in Turnout. And I was like, "Yeah, a bunch of rookies." But he was talking about me. And I was like, "Yeah, I need to pay my fees." But fortunately, you don't pay your non-notified turnout fines right there.
Yeah.
But I was like, "Yeah, bunch of losers. Pay attention." But that was when I learned about checking
yo. Well, they used to come in on email. Like, they would send us an email, but then you'd call also. So if you didn't get the email, you'd have to call.
Right.
But I think, how does it work now? I mean, I get text messages and stuff.
Yeah, I get text messages. I don't even have a card, and I get text messages.
Well, I think almost all of the entries are online now, aren't they?
Don't get me to lie.
Like, do you even call anymore?
I didn't really enter myself when I was rodeoing, so Jacobs or Dale pretty much handled that. So that it was hard for me to go to the ones that I was entered in, much less keep it straight.
There towards when he started kind of dwindling down, he was entering all these rodeos, and then you'd go to the rodeo and see his name on there, but he wouldn't be.
Hey, in the beginning, I went if I was entered. I didn't turn anything out. But at the end, it was tough to actually show up. It was.
It's like whenever you're Tall's age over here, and I remember every time I went to the donut stop with my old man, like I would get like 6 donuts, sprinkles, get the cinnamon roll, get all of them, get the bear claw, all of it, and I'd eat like one of them every single time. That's Jeremy with Rodeos.
Yep.
Oh yeah, because it's easy. Like 3 weeks out, you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna drive down to Los Fresnos, 9 hours.
100%.
I'll do that. Yeah, Mercedes, put me down.
And in the morning of, you're like,
Dude, we were fired up one year, and Jacobs comes that we were rodeoing. It was it was me and Sterling's rookie year. We were rodeoing with Anglin in the Cody Anglin was riding with us, and so Jacobs comes to us one day.
Y'all weren't in the ambulance yet.
Yeah, we had the ambulance out there, but Anglin had old Brownie. He had a brown Good Times van. So we had the ambulance and the brown van, and it took both of them to rodeo all summer because we never had both of them running at one time.
yeah, they were all
the brown van
broken down.
It ran way more than the ambulance, but you know they still had their things. So Jacobs comes to us and he's like, "Look, y'all, we've got an open spot in our schedule. We're in Salt Lake, Spanish Fork, and I don't remember what the other one was in Utah, maybe Ogden or something. They were all 3 together, though. And he said, and we have a day off in between if y'all want to enter Woodward. Dude, it was early, and we weren't even in Utah yet, So it's just a place on a map. To us, we're like, yes, enter us up. Let's do this, And so after Salt Lake, me and Sterling are sitting in the hospitality tent eating whatever they had there. And Jacobs comes in this rush, like, what are y'all doing? Get in the van. Like, what are you talking about? He said, we got to be in Woodward. 17 hours straight through, horses loaded. And so we run up, get on the horses, we ride. Actually, thank goodness, because I didn't win $1 in Utah, but I won second in Woodward. So that worked out, But my mom was running barrels in Woodward. And I hollered at her, said, hey, we got to go, and I didn't get to see her run or anything. So we were only in Woodward for like a very short period of time.
Like
and
30 minutes.
We were in the same rush when we got back to, Spanish Fork or whatever it was. It was a very bad idea. Like at that time, we'd been rodeoing for 3 weeks longer than we had when we made the sketch, when Jacobs asked us. So we were not so gung-ho to leave Salt Lake that night as we were when he was just hypothetically asking if we wanted to fill a spot in the schedule.
36 hours would have been good to just rest.
Dude.
Yeah. That's just rodeoing.
I'd have been broker, but it would have been good to just rest. So
just rodeoing.
Yeah.
Just rodeoing.
Just going.
You and Stir, though, that's like y'all the perfect traveling partners for JC.
Yeah. Don't get in the way of his entering or where he wants to go. Just nod. Try to be there and awake and all that.
And really, like, he's probably got a pretty good plan anyway.
Yeah, he's got the plan. Like, we would have just screwed the plan up.
There's no point in trying to come up with your own plan.
Yeah, so I don't know if we were perfect for JC or
just go with his.
JC was perfect for us, but either way, maybe we would have been better at paying attention to things if we'd had to. But probably not. We probably would have just been less successful than we were.
I think he can add other people into his plan along the way.
If you will roll with his plan.
Yeah, because he'll call you. He'll call you if you're somewhere and be like, hey, come pick me up at the airport. Or like if you're at a rodeo or wherever, hey, can you drop me off at the airport? Or like,
I got this planned out perfect. I'm going to fly in at this date. You're going to swing in and grab me on your way through. And it's like, and you just like act like this person's just giving you their plan. You were just in it. Okay, I got what I'm supposed to be doing now.
Yeah, it was.
Speaking of old nicknames that people haven't been called in a while. So we went to the lake last weekend. And so Lauren Jacobs and Gordy and okay, we're going to have to edit out that it took me that long to find Lottie's name. So, and then me and Carly and Slevin and Scarlett. So we've got our kids, we got our families, they come down here, we take the boat out, and Cordy was trying to figure out my name, and Jacob stopped and was like, that's Captain Queso. Because he's got a boat. So the entire weekend I've got a 5-year-old going, Captain Queso. Can I drive? Of course you can.
God, that's hilarious. Queso. the nickname went from Melanson, Procom pronounced
Melanson
it.
is my name, so we can't really call that a nickname. But
Right,
yeah.
right. Well, how the nickname evolved started with your real name, Melanson.
Yep.
Melankin.
Yep. Lankin.
Lankin.
Lanco.
Lanco.
Queso Blanco.
Queso Blanco.
Queso.
Queso.
And it's been a minute since I've been Queso, but I was Captain Queso. I have gotten a little bit higher on the ranking these days. I'm Captain Queso.
Picked up
Captain
rank.
Queso.
Yeah. Until the boat broke down, and then I was other names that weren't old nicknames. Well, I mean, they kind of could be considered that, but yeah.
Dude,
By everybody else or just your wife?
Well, thankfully, somehow, like we go out, we play on the water, we stop at this little island. You know, Jacob's hooks a fish. You know, he's we're having fun, right? Well, it's Lottie's nap time. We got to go back to the house, so we drop everybody off at the house. Kids are eating lunch. Lauren had said something about the wakeboard. You know, Slevin wanted a tube. I was like, we're fixing to run some fuel out of this thing. Fuel gauge doesn't work. The second hint that my boat's kind of janky. I said, well, I'll run it to the marina and get some fuel. Jacob said, I'm going to jump in with you. So we get gas at the marina. We come out of the marina. He goes, hey, you got 30 minutes for fuel? So he calls and tells Lauren his plan. Hey, y'all are good. Y'all don't need us, right? Okay. Yeah, well, it's going to take us about 30 minutes to get back. He said, go put me on the fish. So we run out to this island real quick while the kids are finished eating. And I shut it off. And he's like, no, scoot me up a little bit more. Never started again.
Oh, man.
So we've got a 9-month-old, a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 6-year-old, and both of our wives on this boat. The rest of the weekend we had that. That was the setup on the boat. And that boat broke down with just me and him on it. You know, had a cooler, had crackers. He had a fishing pole. We were fine.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
did you end up getting it fixed?
Not yet.
Oh, my gosh.
You had to get towed back.
So you had to
Oh,
ride
yeah.
out the weekend without it.
Oh, we left. Yeah, it was the end of the weekend, really. But, yeah, we just cut the weekend short a little bit.
Yeah.
No. When I bought it, the starter bolts were broke on it. I'm not a mechanic of any means. And within 3 days of me having this boat, me and my dad have the engine pulled out of it with the skid steer. We're tapping bolts. I'm YouTubing. We're changing parts out. I've got everything replaced, all the parts that I can change. Some of them needed to be. Some of them were just me trying to get it fixed. So I was pretty high on my boat, and then the starter bolts broke again. So I have an issue there that I don't really know how to do. So if any mechanics are in the audience, I need a boat fixed.
Dude, so I don't know when it was Memorial Day weekend. I went to the Danny Dietz deal at NRS.
Mm-hmm.
And they had bears and bulls, and I don't know why they didn't have Broncs, but it was bareback horses and bulls. It was a PRCA deal, but it was just those two events. And Cullen had it. Cullen Pickett had it, not Lancaster. And anyway, there were 2 SEAL Team 6 guys there. Marcus was there. Got to see Marcus. That was cool. Well, then there was DJ Shipley and Cole Fackler. They're 2 SEAL Team 6 guys, a little bit younger than Marcus, but got to meet them. I'd listened to a podcast DJ was on. Super cool. Well, then we go back and we are behind the chutes, and these guys come back there, and I'm talking to a few guys, and dude, this DJ guy is like infatuated with these, like he's videoing every bull ride, every bareback horse, and he's like locked in. He's a fan of it. And so I get to talking to him afterwards, and I'm a fan of what he had done because since having been on Marcus's podcast, I read both of his books and then like 9 other books, some of them by SEALs, some of them by Marines, some of them by Army guys. Like I've been going through these military books about the last 20 years that we've been at war, you know? So anyhow, I'm talking to DJ and having known a little bit of his story, it was just neat but what he was talking about, he's like, dude, it is so similar to what we were doing. And what he's talking about is like CQB, close quarters battle. Is that what that stands for? I know it's like clearing out rooms, you know, and everything.
Yeah.
So he said 95% of the rooms we went into were benign, was the word he used. Like they would be empty.
Mm-hmm.
But one of those 20 or one of those 40 would somebody be in there.
Oh, yeah.
And so you got to come around the corner ready to fight. And he talks about it later. Like there was a video that, because they started this deal, it's called GBRS Group, and they help Global Battlefield Solutions research something where they'll train SWAT teams and stuff. And there was a little video I saw the other day where he was talking about like a bunch of like IG influencers that are like gun nuts that are talking about CQB and talking about clearing rooms, and it's all thought and theory. But, you know, like he said, everybody wants to do gangsters stuff till it's time to do gangster stuff. And he said, you go clear out a room with somebody in it, that's the most gangsters you'll ever do. And he said, because you're going to get shot. You're going to get shot. And so anyways, hearing him talk about it is just crazy because that's what you guys did over there. But we were talking about rodeoing, and he was talking about bull riding and bronc riding, and he said it's so similar, but the situation with you guys is like when you nod, there is absolutely a fight every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if there's not a fight, you get a re-ride.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, if this one doesn't fight enough, we'll put you on another one that does.
Right. You're here to fight, though.
Exactly. Yeah. You're here to fight. You're here to turn on that switch you were talking about earlier. But listening to him talk about it is when he rounds that corner, he's got to expect a fight, number one. And I was talking to somebody else, like sometimes it's the odds are way different, and it's not, 5% chance that they're going to round the corner, somebody's in it. Sometimes like we're flying over there and there absolutely will be a fight. Matter of fact, we're getting shot at as we land. And the thought for me is the similarity is just like when you guys go around the corner,
mm-hmm.
you gotta, you have to perform, and you can't let your emotions come over you.
Right.
So like same thing with getting on bucking horses. Our first 5 head, you black out. Your emotions, your
you
adrenaline.
Don't even know what's going on.
You don't know what's going on. Like
No.
if you're clearing a room under that situation, all right, you're dead.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, and in our situation, we're bucked off. And I was like, well, I said the obvious. I was like, yeah, except the stakes aren't near as high. And he was kind of trying to scratch our. He was like, yeah, but sometimes they are. He was being humble about it, but like, they're not. Occasionally, we have some bad things happen in an arena. So there is a chance.
Absolutely.
The chances are much higher for a Marine, an SF guy, Green Beret, SEAL Team 6. But the thought process of like having to control your emotions underneath the weight of that fight to me is so intriguing. Like, dude, CQB, like clearing a room, to me blows my mind when I think about it. Having read all these books and listening to these guys like go around a corner, and since I talked to him, every time I've nodded my head out of the chute, I cannot help but think about that conversation with him. Every single time.
Yeah.
I think about that conversation I had with him. Anyhow, it's kind of a specific thing.
No, and it's definitely got its similarities, and like you were saying, the stakes aren't quite as being doing both, and having been injured worse in the arena than I was, kicking indoors and doing urban warfare type stuff. I don't know. It's like with rodeo, you kind of, even though it's out of control, you have the ability to control it a little bit more. But when you're going into that scenario, there's more fear of the unknown, like, because you have no idea what's going to be around that corner. And so when you're in the chute on a horse, yeah, you probably don't know exactly what that horse or bull or whatever is going to do.
But he ain't going to be wearing a suicide vest.
No, and you got a pretty good idea. He can only do a couple different things. When you bust into a house or in a room, anything in the whole entire world could happen.
The whole house could blow up.
Yeah.
The stakes are high for you, but the stakes are just as high for the other side in the opposite way.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. It has, especially, so like I've gotten on a couple of Broncs here at the house, and I got a Golden Gun. Do you remember hammer cocked or grab your gun?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So this is a sibling to those two. Gets it on the first two, feels the first two jumps. Yeah. She feels like those other horses for two jumps. Well, then she's done, and she's just kind of a hopper. You need to come get on her.
Yeah.
But so like whenever I get on her, I'm really trying to focus on the first jump. Just hold my mark out for just one, and then spur the first jump.
Yeah.
I mean, you hold your mark out for one, and then 95% of the bronc riders in the PRCA can, D up the first jump and then spur the rest. But it's just cool to see, Stetson, Jacobs, that caliber of bronc rider, mark out, then they're spurring.
Yep.
There is no D'ing up, waiting to see what it's going to feel like.
Yeah.
When you're watching, it's an obvious thing. Like when they hit them that next jump after they pulled their mark out on their terms and reached back up there and grabbed them, it's a whole different game to watch.
Yeah. And matter of fact, I told Carson today, like he's wanting to be a bronc rider, and I was like, well, you need to work on holding them for two, because what most guys do is they get their mark out, and then they D up for a jump.
Yeah.
Then they get to spurring. They try to find that rhythm. Well, you might as well just hold them for two, then spur, because it'll make you look like you're in more control. But if you're not going to hold them for two, you need to spur the first jump, or the second jump. Mark out first jump, spur the second jump. So anyhow, what I'm trying to work on is controlling my emotions enough and being quick enough to mark out the first jump, pull them, send them. And there's no downtime of like D'ing up for a jump to wait and see what it's going to feel like. But and so that's what I'm thinking about is like, you clear a room, you go around a corner, and if you don't execute the fundamentals with your training, with how you handle your weapon, then it's game over.
There's no hesitation, and at the same time, if you think much in the rough stock events, if you think that you're going to think about it in the middle of a ride, it's the same thing. There's no thinking. It's got to be instincts. So you've got to have, and that's where that training comes in, and that's why you do a year's workup of training before you ever go into a, special operations capable type deal, or you do 2 years of training or however much training you do, so you can get that muscle memory, because when you go into that situation, that's the last thing you want to do is be thinking. It's the same thing with rodeo. I mean, it's the same thing with, rough stock events. The more horses you get on, the more you're going to figure it out. It just turns into muscle memory then.
Go ahead.
I started a really good ride one time, and like mark out was good, went right to spurring. Like it felt really good, and about 6 seconds I got bucked off, and I went back over to the chutes, and Sam Sprayborough grabbed me and he goes, "You went to thinking about how good you were riding that horse." And that's exactly what happened. I was reacting, I was utilizing muscle memory and everything that I'd been working on at the time. And then as soon as I had him and went to thinking about, I need to set my feet a little higher,
It's probably a bucker.
Got bucked off,
It was probably a bucker and you were handling him. But then the moment you didn't handle him and you thought about it.
The moment you were thinking about it, he was still bucking.
Exactly.
Yeah. He hadn't turned into that hopper at the end of the ride yet,
Were you with me the night I was going to win Liberty in the bronc ride? Hands down, I was about to win it. Got to the fence and that song came on, I Can't Feel My Face When I'm With You. And I was like, they never play that during the bronc. Boom, bucked off. 1,000%. Like I remember it
in
like
the
it was
middle
yesterday.
of the ride.
Yeah.
They started playing it.
Well, you know how like they'll start.
They'll start with a song and then they'll switch
and
it.
As soon as the gate opens, they'll switch it.
Yeah.
And so like same thing. Like first 5 seconds of the ride, like I'm handling my Bronc, and a 78 won it. Like I know without a shadow of a doubt. Like I was riding good right then, and I can't feel my face. Like they don't play that during the Bronc on my head, which they don't. They don't. But I just thought about it, and he kind of got to the fence, and he was still bucking, but he was kind of changed leads.
Yeah,
I was
pretty narrow.
so upset,
Man.
just because I knew I was tapped off.
Yeah.
There are no redos. No one shoots you, but there's still not a redo.
One of those books was talking about they're so mixed up in my head. Which books is who has said what?
If you read a lot of them, I would imagine they start
So
kind of
mixed
mixing
up.
together.
But it sounded like early in the war, like they had no idea how much urban warfare they were going to be doing. You guys were going to be doing, and so like a lot of that clearing houses stuff, it was very little training. Whereas towards the end,
Well, we started. I mean, they have an urban warfare training center there at Camp Pendleton. So we, they'd send us in there, and what they did, it's kind of like paintballs, but they switch out your upper receiver, and it's called sim rounds. So you're firing a 5.56 cartridge, but it has a paint round in the end of it. And so, but you're shooting it at each other, and these suckers freaking hurt.
I bet.
And so, but we're going, so we did a lot of that stuff before we went like on the first initial deal. But
how close were you to going to Afghanistan rather than Iraq? Because you were.
I don't know, So when I came back from my first tour, from Iraq, that was that first initial invasion, and everybody knew that at some point we were all going to go back. We just didn't know in what capacity.
To Iraq or Afghanistan?
Iraq, because when we left, other units came in and relieved us to stay there.
Yeah, to
maintain. So we knew at some point we were probably going to have to go back to do nothing else but just make sure everything stays maintained. And so when we got back, the unit that I was with, they pretty much said, okay, like y'all start getting ready to go back in 9 months to a year. So that was when I, chose to go the Marine Expeditionary Unit route. And so I guess there was kind of a chance then to go to Afghanistan, but, for whatever reason, things didn't happen the way it was supposed to plan to be happened in Iraq. So then we just ended up going back to Iraq. Yeah. So I don't know, but there was never a time where I remember anybody saying, hey, your unit's going to Afghanistan. And I don't even, to think about it, looking back, I don't remember what units got sent to Afghanistan and what units got sent to Iraq. I wonder how they decided that.
I don't know.
How much different was it going the second time than the first time, as far as like, you kind of know what you have an experience to go off of versus going for the first time? What's the difference in the feeling the second time versus the first time? So the second time, you have that combat experience, so you kind of know what to expect as far as combat situations, the enemy you're facing, what kind of scenarios you might deal with. You don't know for certain, but you kind of have an idea, a better idea, and then you just have that. It's like a fifth-year senior quarterback playing in the SEC that's been there for, like up against a freshman that's straight out of high school. Like it's kind of like if you've never seen those kinds of things happen, it's hard to know how to react to them. So once you've experienced it, then you can react to them better without thinking about it. And I think
the biggest difference for the second time is that we were kind of more mechanized. Like we had more experience, more fighting power, more amenities, more, technology and different stuff like that. So it was way different. It was like on that first initial invasion, it was like bare bones, just go in there and get it done. And the second time we had more tools.
Yeah.
So
well, you said
it was a little bit better.
We talked about this on a previous podcast, and you talked about how the first time you got shot at, dropped the Amtrak deal, y'all run out, y'all getting shot at.
Yeah.
Like nobody with you guys had ever been to combat.
Nobody knows.
Because it was so soon after 9/11. Like nobody, like you got maybe some guys that had been like around during the cold or Desert Storm.
Cold War.
Cold War. I don't know, I was about to say Cold War.
All them books are running together.
You want to talk about books running together during Desert Storm. But like,
the Desert Storm guys at that time were old.
Right.
I mean,
so
Desert Storm was in 91.
Like even somebody haven't gotten shot at once. Maybe if they didn't even pull the trigger, like they would be, in the land of the blind, one-eyed man is king.
Yeah.
But so I bet that was a big, because now like I was talking to on Marcus's podcast, he shouldn't have gave me his number. I'll tell you that. Like anytime, because like I'll text him like if I'm wanting to know about this country or that country or whatever, like I'll be like, what do you think about, and he's like, no, we're fine. Don't worry about it. But I was like, dude, I feel like if something was going to go down, I want it to happen now rather than in 15 years, 20 years after peace. Cause like right now there's some killers still enlisted.
Yeah.
Like active. Yeah. There's some people, like I went over to Fort Benning. I got opportunity to shoot guns over there and hang out with some guys. Like I was talking to one guy, 11 tours, and he's training, people with small arms. Like he's not people with small arms like me, small arms as in like a pistol or a rifle, but he's training these guys. Like that's who's training the next generation. A guy with 11 tours.
Yeah. Like
there's no telling what he's seen. And he's molding this next generation of warfighter.
Yeah, I mean it's
so there's like
makes a big difference.
There's bullfighters that in rodeo, all bareback riders, bull riders, bronc riders that like we've all seen them. Maybe they had the fire, maybe they had the fight at one time, but now they're just like they've not yet quit, but it's not there.
Their name shows up on the day sheets, but they don't come.
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about they'd rather hang out with their kids. I'm talking about like there's a new level of like fear there.
Yeah.
Which is okay. And I'm not knocking it at all.
No, but it changes your different perspectives that you have.
It 100%. Morally, absolutely nothing wrong with it. But there's a different level of fight there. Anyhow, just like in, I'm sure over there, like where you find yourself in amongst some people where it's like, all right, we were here. This is a much more real than what I thought it was going to be. I wanted to have done this, not I enjoy doing this. You see what I'm saying? You understand the difference? Like, I think there's a lot of people like, I would love to have a picture on a bull. I don't want to be on the bull.
Yeah.
Like I want to have ridden the bull rather than ride the bull. But I think like there's people right now, like 11 tours, and I'm sure some people, I think you were probably one of them, where it's like you enjoy the actual fight. Like I think there's, and I bet you can see it. I bet you can sense it. You have to be able to see it.
Well, and you can, there's a certain level of that too, not necessarily like you want to go get shot at, but at the same time, you now have the experience, the expertise level. You're very good at it. You can handle yourself in that situation. And so maybe you almost want to take, because I still have ideas in my mind at 40 years old. I still have ideas in my mind. Like if something went down, like I'm ready to roll, you know, but obviously, you know, there's, 21-year-old guys right now that could whip my ass. But at the same time, when you get that expertise level, you get those experiences. Sometimes you want to not necessarily relive them, but like be back in that capacity of, because it's a very few, I guess it's a very few amount of people in the world that have done those kinds of things. And even going back to wars in the past, like, you find old veterans and stuff now that they've gone through some heavy stuff.
Just killers.
And I'm sure that in the back of their mind, they're still like, heck yeah, give me something. Let me go out in style, And I think a lot of it is we get that way in rodeo too. And it's something that I'm kind of trying to deal with a little bit right now, is like, so in my riding is not at a level that I want it to be anymore, because mentally some things have changed for me, and physically some things have changed for me at 40. I got to do some things different to try to keep up. I mean, these kids now that are 18, they're freaking killing it.
They're amazing.
Yeah. They're spurring the dog out of horses at 17, 18, 19 years old. Like when I was 19, I was headed to Marine Corps boot camp, which is something that's somewhat similar to that, but I'm not sure at 19 that I would have had the mental capacity to spur the dog out of a bareback horse.
But you still like have a skill set that so few of the people have in the world. You know what I mean? Like there's some, you're not probably, none of us are probably going to strap onto a horse tomorrow and go be, top level competitive against those kids that are working that hard and doing it every day, et cetera. Yeah. Even if I was still doing it, it would have been, it's still hard to do that. But then when you zoom out a little bit, there may not be 500 people in the world that have real bronc riding experience at the level that we have it, right? So you're not competitive. There's nowhere to use your skill set, but it's still the top, 0.1% of the world as far as who knows how to do that thing. Yeah. So it kind of turns into what do you do with it,
Yeah. When it's the same thing with the combat stuff, and that's why I think so many combat veterans come out and have issues, because those are skills that you can't get doing anything else besides that one thing. And you obviously will never get the opportunity, but like you'll never be put in a situation where you can legally kill somebody for a living anymore.
I can't imagine just the adrenaline rush, even if the room is empty. You go around the corner like, dude, your boots on, you're ready to kill or be killed. The adrenaline rush going around the corner every night. Now all of a sudden you get back and you're out, and it's just like, well, I guess I'll go get groceries.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's like I've told you this before. I mean, dogs get shot. I shot a chicken one time flying across the room.
In combat, not at the house.
In combat.
Not back in the States.
You kick in a door and a freaking chicken flies across the room, man.
Sorry, buddy.
You
scared me. Yeah, that's what Mike, this guy that 11 Tours, Mike Whittick, he said when he got out and was, done with his 11th tour, he had to start lifting weight. And this dude is big, jacked, very low body fat. But he's like, I had to take that energy somewhere. And so I decided to go to the gym with it. And that gave me that 1 or 2 hours a day where he could release that energy and that just kind of come off of this high of clearing rooms every day.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the transition and guys that are in there for 20 years.
Right. Like even a position that utilizes those skills or or would need those skills on a resume, say like a bodyguard or a security or something like that, you're still not utilizing the skill set that you were using. You're just there in case you need them, but you don't.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're just there in case something happens. So.
Well, it's just I imagine it would be a lot of like, you know, SWAT team stuff too. But like I'm assuming, obviously I don't know because I've never been in that scenario. But in a SWAT team scenario, I would think that something might pop off once a month. I could be mistaken there. You know, maybe twice a month. And you don't necessarily, and I think the difference of it is that, or some of the differences that I would have with it is that it would be like if you're in SWAT at the city of Houston for, you know, Houston PD, like that's your home city. You're essentially going to take down some of your home people.
Right. Completely different
Americans, like people that you might have grown up with at school.
There should be a lot less angst about the fight.
Right.
There probably is. Like,
well,
yeah, I mean,
that arena was a controlled environment when you turned that corner. You know, if something happened, there was a bunch of people there focused to help you.
Yeah.
Well, if you were clearing a room over here and something went south, then you may not be in a good area, but sooner or later, you're going to get to a friendly area.
Mm-hmm.
Over there, where's the friendly area?
There's no friendly area.
Yeah.
You make your own friendly area.
Yeah. So, I don't know anything about what we're talking about. I'm just saying, you know, those are the things.
Yeah, you have to make your own friendly area. And there's, you know, you have your fallback zones and your, you know,
QRFs.
Yeah, you have your spots where if a whole bunch of crap goes down and everything gets scattered and everybody's scattered to the wind, then, you know, you get on the radio and say, go back to, you know, to Point Zulu or whatever, you know, like, and everybody heads back to that one spot, which we had to do that a couple times. But, and so when everybody gets back and everybody's accounted for, well, then everybody's good again. You reconvene and go back doing what you were doing before. But I would assume, you know, like, you know, if you were in SWAT or something, like you could go to the next door neighbor's house and be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah. Just walk down the street.
And not downplaying any of that.
No.
You know, like
no.
that. It's just I think it's different. A completely
it's
different.
It's got to be different.
Deal,
and a SWAT person would know. I mean, like, walk to the next house. It's an American. Yeah. Just say, hey, I'm on SWAT. They'll be like, oh, would you like some food? You know.
Well, and I bet a lot of those guys that are in those SWAT teams have been in a combat situation in the United States military.
Man,
I mean,
also,
to go from that to, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of guys that do that.
Yeah. And the difference in like, hey, you're gonna clear this block today, and then this block tomorrow, and then this is what you're gonna do for the 5-day week that we're doing this thing. Other than, like you said, 2 or 3 times a month.
Or this is what you're going to do like, from October 15th to Christmas.
Right. Like that's way different than this is something that could happen and you're who's prepared to do it. Mm-hmm. I would think.
I rewatched Black Hawk Down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's been 20 years. I didn't realize it came out like a month after 9/11.
The movie came out a month after?
Movie. Yeah. Because, I mean, the actual incident happened a long time ago. But then, like, the movie came out, like, right after 9/11 and rewatching it. But the one thing that really got me was the second helicopter that went down, and then another helicopter is flying over them, and these 2 Delta guys were like, hey, drop us off so we can go help these pilots make sure they're all right. And they were like, we drop you off and you're dead. And they were like, permission denied. They're like, no, we want to go. And they're like, all right, but you understand
that if we drop you,
this is it. This is it. Like, we drop you off, like, you're probably not getting picked up. And they're like, yeah, let's. And sure enough, you know, they got overran, but then the pilot survived. And they both got medals of honor, you know, afterwards. But just that moment in the helicopter, like, dude, that's what I'm talking about. Those guys welcome to the fight.
Yeah.
you know, and they're Delta, they're tip of the spear. Like you should expect something like that out of them. But like, if they were bullfighters, bull riders, like that's a JB Mooney of like welcoming not only the fight of a bull, but like bushwhacker.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like somebody that's hungry for bronc meat.
Bring it on.
Like a Cody Webster of bullfighting.
Yeah.
Like, no, if cameras are off, if there's no photographer, I'll still do it. Like we're not here for the gram. You know, that's that's what makes me, I cannot not think about it when I'm on the back of the chutes. After having that conversation with him, when he made that analogy, it's gonna happen. Once you nod your head, there will be a fight, and you have to remove your emotions and execute the fundamentals, or you die.
That's why I was asking about what's a different feeling the first time to the second time, you know, because I could see that, you know, you have a built up confidence because you know what it's going to be a little bit, but you at least have an experience to go off of, et cetera. But you also know what to expect. So there's some level of fear that can come in too. You know, you have the confidence from being on that Bronc that you know what it's going to feel like, but you also have the fear of knowing what it's going to feel like on that.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
I mean,
like getting on the first cut, you know, the horse that you were talking about that took the rig into the face, you know.
Oh yeah.
So you get on her, you know, you're riding so much better 6 months later, and you draw her again. You have more confidence overall in general, but then you also know what it felt like last time you got on her.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
I think, you know, is how
or
does that,
even maybe the opposite. Like
and I think
whenever I got on what's that? Apache, the freaking horse, Mo Betta's horse.
now
Sioux
who
City
can't
Sioux.
remember horses?
Sioux City Sioux. And
Amazing ride.
in Apache, and then like a month later in Rosenberg, new season, same horse, and rode great in Apache, but then in you know, same exact horse in Rosenberg, and I get 2 jumped because, you know, it's like, oh, well, I've accomplished this level.
Yeah, let me try to ride her a little better
Now I'm going
this
to do
time.
this. But like, and that's what I tell these interns. Like, it's not a video game where once you complete level 1, you press pause, you come back the next day, now you're on level 2. Like, you have to start over every ride. Like, you have to go back to the fight every time. And we all try to do it. Like, well, now I'm going to work on turning my toes out more. Now I'm going to work on, you know, and then you set your rein
What
down.
happened? Well, you were working on turning your toes out, so they were out when you come over her head.
Exactly.
Because you weren't working on riding her.
And that's stuff that you can do. You can work on stuff at the house on the spur board or on the machine or maybe on practice horses if you know what you're getting on. But the rodeo is not the time to work on stuff. In my mind.
100%. Yeah. You got to
Rodeo's
react.
not the time to work on stuff. The time to work on stuff is back at the house on the spur board, bucket machine.
With the Sims.
With the
paintball bullets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the time to work on stuff. When you get into combat, the work's already been done. Whatever work that you have not done is going to show.
Yeah. What is it? That's what one thing that DJ was saying. You fall to the level of your training. You don't rise to the level of the occasion. You fall to the level of your training.
Yeah. If you're not prepared, one of two things are going to happen. Either you're going to get killed or you're going to get everybody else killed. One of the two. So you have to prepare not only like it's your life, but all your brothers around you. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to be the best. You don't want to be the best there for you. You want to be the best there for everybody. And everybody needs to strive to be that same level.
Yeah.
You know?
Rising to the occasion is such a weird concept that it's even a saying. You know what I mean? Like, in explain that out in a way that it's possible. Like, in a controlled environment, when you had everyone working with you, when you were slowing everything down, you weren't really to this level. But when everything gets shaken up and you can't see up, you'll rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Divine intervention.
Yeah.
A miracle.
Yeah.
That's the only way it could happen. A miracle. Your enemy trips and falls.
Yeah.
In front of you, like stumbles over a block, and then you're able to just like some sort of miracle. That'd be the only way.
That'd be the only way.
But you can't plan for that.
I was taking flying lessons, and my instructor, we set up a solo flight from Huntsville to Lufkin. Okay, so it's my first trip. I'm going to go land at another airport. I'm going to, go in. They sign my book. I'm going to fly back. Well, he told me, he said, look, it's done by the hours. So if you get back too soon, fly around a little bit, because if not, it has to be on a cross country. You'd have to, if you need like 5 more minutes to round out your time, you have to fly all the way back to Lufkin and back, so, watch your time. So I got back a little early, and instead of doing touch and goes and staying in the pattern of the airport, I went and flew over a friend's house to take a picture of it, and looked down, and my gauges were looking funny. Well, my vacuum pump had failed, and I'd lost 2 of the 6 gauges. Well, now my heart starts racing faster, and I reach over and I pull the standby vacuum. But I didn't. I pulled the alternate static. And so then the pitot tube killed 3 more of my gauges, because turns out there was something wrong with my alternate. Yeah. All I had to do was shove the alternate back in, and those 3 gauges would have came back alive, and then tried my vacuum. But there was no rising to any occasion. I didn't get this amazing, I've been doing this forever and know exactly what to do. Yeah. I'm kind of freaking out, And so my airspeed starts climbing real high, but I don't know any of these problems are happening. I don't know why my gauges don't work. I just know my gauge doesn't work, and now more don't work. I'm fixing to lose even, the last one's gone. But I'm looking out the window, seeing how slow I'm flying, but my airspeed is climbing higher than I've ever seen it, this period of time that I've been flying. So I'm high in yellow. I'm getting to where I'm freaking out. I'm fixing to get to red. Now we've got airframe issues. And so I'm trimming to try to slow down, and I hit the end of my trim, and that's when it kicked in, like, okay, this is wrong, like you're going to stall the plane. And so I retrimmed, and I just decided not to look at any gauges and land the plane. And I went down, and I was like, George, something happened. And he kind of got concerned and went out there. We went over to the mechanic. The mechanic's like, yeah, you got a dirt dauber's nest in your backup. If whatever. It wasn't, it's terrible. You think I got a janky boat? It's much better than a janky plane. So, but he said, hey, it's okay. Your training kicked in. That's why I make you do, we don't do a Lufkin cross country and then you do it on your own, and then do a Georgetown College Station was a long cross country, and then we flew to Sugar Land at night. But before you fly to Sugar Land and back at night with them as cross country, he takes you up in the traffic pattern, flies at night, and you turn off all the lights like you had an electrical failure, and you don't get to use any of your lights. So he said, look, you did it in the dark with no gauges, then your training kicked in, and you could do it in the daylight with no gauges. But I wasn't thinking about any of that. I didn't stop and go, well, hang on, I did it without gauges. And, it's just, I fell all the way down. Like, I didn't do any of that other stuff that I'd read about or thought about. I fell all the way down to that training. So, I've never heard that, but that's exactly what it was. There was no like spectacular thing of rising to anything or, this stuff falling out of the air. It was just fall back down to your training and get it done.
Otherwise, it's luck, which I don't believe in. So, it's just like maybe it just happens to, you just hoping for a miracle.
Yeah.
Otherwise, which they do occasionally happen, but but
you don't have time to hope for one. You need to focus on whatever training you've got to use it.
You can't plan around a miracle.
Yeah.
You got to, especially if it's something you're going to go do. But life advice, that's how we wrap these up. What do you got?
Man, just be real clear about whatever's going on and however you're experiencing it, instead of trying to figure out how it's going to sound or anything like that.
What do you mean?
Well, like if we're, working on something in our job or business or sales or writing or anything else, it's like we want to sound the best that we can so that they'll trust us long enough to, hire us at whatever, or trust that we know so much, or or that we want the person we're working with to be confident in who we are, and that they're in the right spot, and just be super open and honest about these are hard things that we're doing, and there's no playbook. this is what I'm experiencing. What do you have? How do you feel about it? Can you help with what you know how to do or whatever? And act like we're all on the same team about what we're going through instead of taking so much and keeping it in and you'll fix it later.
What do you got?
I think I'm going to kind of spin off the whole fear thing. I think, everybody has fear. It's part of life. And what you do with the fear is the biggest thing on whether you're going to be successful on something or not successful. There's essentially, I think, there's two things you can do with it. You can either panic or you can act and do something, use it to your advantage, and strive to always use the fear for your advantage. Never get in panic mode.
Yeah. Well, that's heavy coming from a former Marine with combat tours under his belt. Mine, one I said earlier today, I did a podcast for Rock and Roll Denim, and it was, I was in a retirement home, old folks home, and I was playing cards with Jane and an older lady named Beryl, which I thought was a cool name. And one of them gave Beryl a hard time because of her breath or something. And Beryl said, well, bad breath is better than no breath. And I thought that was kind of like fear coming from a Marine. I thought that was interesting coming from a lady in an old folks home retirement community. Bad breath is better than no breath. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Rodeo Time. If you're interested, if you're in the Huntsville area and need somewhere to stay, look up the grounds of Huntsville. A lot of units out here. They've got horse stalls. They've got an arena. Jeremy built it from the ground up. And check us out. DaleBrisby.com. Pow, pow, and on to the next one.